The rain whispered first, not with fury, but with memory. In a small hut deep in the Amazon, an old woman and her goat lived quietly, until silence took the place of a bell. What began as a search for a lost companion became a battle to awaken a sleeping forest. This is the story of Ira, Chinky, and the last bell of the forest. Not the kind that startles or screams, but the kind that hums, low, steady, ancient. It slid down the leaves like it belonged there, soaking the wooden frame of Ira's hut until it shimmered like moss. She sat by the open window, her calloused hands slowly slicing plantain for the fire. Beside her, curled in the straw, was Chinky, her goat, her companion, her lifeline, her only witness. The goat stirred, the bell around her neck letting out a soft ting, the kind of sound that wrapped around Ira's heart like an old lullaby. That bell, that tiny brass bell, was the last thing her husband Muran had hung around Chinky's neck before he faded into the earth 2 winters ago. A gift, a promise. "So you never feel alone," he had whispered. The jungle outside was both womb and warning. The Amazon didn't just breathe, it watched. Its canopy above was thick and tangled, a labyrinth of light and shadow full of stories, creatures, spirits. Ira had learned to live within it, to take only what she needed, to speak in quiet tones to the earth, and to listen when it spoke back. But lately, it hadn't been whispering. It had been screaming, chainsaws, 100 trees a day, and footsteps that didn't belong to any animal. Ira heard them before she saw them. Men in orange vests, eyes like steel, skin dry from money, not sun. One of them, the one called Barreto, had stopped at her clearing the week before, offered her compensation for her land. "You shouldn't be alone out here, Senora," he'd said with a tight smile. "This forest won't be standing much longer." She hadn't responded. She just placed a hand on Chinky's back. The bell rang softly. That was answer enough. The rain lasted for 3 days. On the 4th, the sun returned, sharp and sudden. Ira stepped outside to gather water, Chinky trailing behind her like always. The goat nibbled at fallen guava, her ears twitching, her hooves quiet against the damp earth. Then, something strange happened. A rustle, a scent in the air. Chinky stopped, ears pricked, and before Ira could blink, she bolted into the jungle. At first, Ira laughed. Chinky often wondered a bit. She'd be back by sunset, chewing leaves, the bell guiding Ira like a north star. But sunset came, then darkness, then a silence so deep, Ira could hear her own breath echo in the trees. She stood outside the hut, barefoot, soaked in moonlight, heart thudding. And when she called Chinky's name, the forest answered with nothing but stillness. The bell had gone quiet. Ira didn't sleep that night. She packed nothing but a woven satchel with dried fruit and a gourd of water, tied Moran's old scarf around her shoulders, and stepped into the jungle barefoot at dawn. The jungle accepted her the way it accepts rain, without fanfare, without resistance. But it also watched her. Vines brushed her arms like cautious fingers. Monkeys paused their play to stare. Even the wind seemed to hush as she walked. Hours passed. The sun climbed, dipped, and hid. Ira followed broken twigs, hoof prints in soft earth, guava half chewed. She called Chinky's name with every breath, hoping for that single chime of the bell in return. Instead, she found silence. And then, footprints. Not Chinky's. Boots. Heavy. Human. Barreto's men. She crouched behind a fallen tree, heart pounding. Just ahead, 2 men were laughing near a crude wooden marker. "She thinks this place is sacred," one said. "Crazy old woman," Let her think. This area's next. Ira closed her eyes. The marker. It was Muran's, a carved wooden talisman etched with symbols from their tribe. It marked the entrance to the Heart Root, a hidden grove deep in the forest, a place Muran believed held the spirit of the land. No one but them knew where it was. No one, except Chimki. Tears burned her eyes. If Chimki had gone there, she was trying to show Ira something. Or maybe she knew that was where she'd be safe. When the men left, Ira followed their path, veering off once she was sure they were gone. The jungle grew denser. Roots curled like sleeping serpents. Light filtered in green veins, and the air smelled older. She moved deeper until she found a clearing she hadn't seen in years. There, beneath the twisted limbs of an ancient summer uma tree, lay Chimki. The goat was curled on her side, breathing heavy. At first, Ira panicked. But as she approached, Chimki lifted her head, and nestled beside her were two tiny, trembling newborns. Goatlings. Ira dropped to her knees, laughter and sobs tumbling out all at once. Chimki nuzzled her hand, and the bell around her neck let out the softest chime Ira had ever heard. A lullaby. She stayed there for hours. She sang. She wept. She remembered. And then she began to gather vines and branches, slowly building a shelter. Each twig she placed felt like laying down roots, an extension of herself into the soil. She created a small sanctuary, not just for the goatlings, but for everything that had been threatened. She found herbs, healed Chimki's cracked hooves, wove charms to hang from the trees. She spoke to the spirits, to Muran, to the jungle itself, and slowly the forest responded. Birds nested nearby. A sloth descended to rest just above her shelter. Even a jaguar passed one night, silent, golden-eyed, acknowledging her presence before fading into the mist. Weeks passed. She ventured only far enough to forage, never too far from Chimki and her young. Barreto's men came again, cutting closer, louder. Ira began crafting traps, not to harm, but to warn. Stones that clattered when disturbed, sharp scents that lingered like ghosts. And everywhere, the bell. She made dozens of them, small brass bells, each tied with red thread, each singing in the wind, a chorus of resistance. She hung them from trees, buried them beneath moss, hid them in birds' nests, and then one day, she walked straight to the machines. Barreto was there, surprised, annoyed. "Senora, you have to understand, this is progress." She said nothing. She held out her hand. In her palm, one bell. "This is the last one," she whispered. Barreto scoffed, turned away, and then the bells began. One by one, from every direction, they rang. The sound echoed through the trees like a forgotten memory. The men stopped, looked around. The machines whirred, then stalled. Something in the air shifted, a kind of pressure, a hush. Then Barreto saw them. Eyes. Everywhere. Not just Iras, not just animals, but people. From the tribes, from the villages, from deep within the jungle. They had come, called by the bells, guided by the sound that only the forest remembered. Barreto left. He never returned. Years passed. The heart root grew greener. The bells, rusted now, still sang in the rain. Ira lived there until her hair turned white, until her hands could no longer weave, until Chimki lay beside her for the last time. The goatlings grew, had young of their own. The generations multiplied, and the lineage of Chimki became part of the grove's very soul. In Ira's final days, children from nearby tribes would visit her. They brought honeycomb and painted seeds, sat around her feet as she told stories of the old days, of Muran, of Chimki, of the bell that saved the forest. When Ira passed, Wrapped in Miriam's scarf beneath the summer almond tree, they buried her with a single bell in her hand. The children wept. The goats stood silently in the mist. Years turned into decades. The grove became sacred, a place of peace, of song. People came to leave bells of their own, to listen, to remember. And still, when the wind stirs just right, the jungle sings. Ting, it is the last bell of the forest, and it will never fall silent. Years passed, but the forest never forgot. And when the wind stirs just right, the bell still rings. A sound of love, loss, and resistance. Thank you for watching. If this story touched your heart, share it. And let the forest's voice be heard once more.